Unfortunately, not all of the leaders we work with are great. Some are not so great. I was recently talking with a senior leader who was sharing his experience, and it's incompetent leadership and even toxic. And it's really doing harm both personally and professionally. It reminded me just how common this can be. Working with a not great leader can be very challenging. It can be destabilizing and even traumatic. And while I don't want to romanticize these experiences for all the harm that they can cause, and we certainly don't want to tolerate abuse, I do think with the right perspective, we can recognize how much we can learn from not so great leadership. Today, I want to share a few stories and talk about how we can learn from not so great leaders. When I was in college, I had to do 2 practicum placements on my way to being a certified teacher. They were each about 30 hours for a semester, kind of a mini student teaching experience. The first one I did was with a master teacher who had a presence and engaged with students and respected the students and was respected by them. My second placement was with a not so great teacher. This teacher was adversarial with me and with students, was condescending, talked down to them. It was a terrible experience. So I had this great experience with a great mentor and master teacher and a not so great teacher. A few years later, when I was doing my student teaching, I was fortunate enough to be placed with that first master teacher. And as I continued to learn from that teacher, and be mentored and be guided by that teacher, what I realized is I had learned more from the bad example than I had from the good one. In the good example, I saw brilliance at work. But I always wondered, is that just that person's style or approach or kind of their way of doing things? Should I replicate that, or should I find my own approach, my own style, my own way of doing things? And I certainly found things that I could borrow and put into place, but I also had to find my own way, my own voice, my own authenticity. When it came to the not so great teacher, I would say to myself again and again, I'll never talk to students like that. I'll never use that tone in delivering a message or managing an issue. I'll never engage with students in that manner. So even though I was in the classroom with this master teacher, I was realizing I had learned so much more from the bad example. Very early in my career, I had a very difficult supervisor. We just kind of conflicted around perspectives, context, approach, culture, and so much more. I later learned that this supervisor was undermining me behind my back to elevate themselves with the folks that I supervise. There were some difficult conversations. There were some conflicts that didn't make sense. There were some negative performance appraisals and some unsubstantiated claims. I'd never experienced that before, and it was confusing. I was scared, and I was furious. I questioned everything, especially myself. I shared this really difficult experience with a mentor when I was kind of at my wit's end and didn't know what else to do. And this mentor reminded me that everyone experiences this at some point in their career, and many folks multiple times. And that I might actually be fortunate to be experiencing it so early in my career, that I would navigate through this, that this is more common than it should be, and that down the road it might help me learn from it. As difficult as it was, and it was really hard, in the long term, in the short term it was very difficult. In the long term, it has served me in so many ways. It has helped me make sure I'm not replicating that same not so great leadership myself. It has helped me empathize with others who are going through a similar experience. It has helped me mentor people through those experiences and be helpful and guide them. If you're in this situation now and you're working with a very difficult supervisor or difficult leader, I want to be clear, this is really hard. You might feel disoriented, discouraged, or even wounded. And again, we don't want to tolerate any abuse. Some strategies that might be helpful. Turn to people you trust, professional colleagues and mentors, people in your personal life. get support from a therapist or coach. Turn to people who can help you see clearly, separate fact from uncertainty, and move from reactivity into choosing your response. And when you feel like you're ready, what lessons can be learned from this experience? A great leader is a role model and inspires you. A not so great leader can teach you even more, particularly in the long term. I want to say a little bit about healing and growth. It can be tempting when we're in these really difficult situations to rush to healing. That's certainly something I could fall into easily. I want to skip over the hard work of processing and skip to the healing and moving forward. We don't want to bypass that hard work. It doesn't work and it's not healthy. However, others stay stuck in the hurt, replaying the harm over and over, unwilling or unable to engage in the healing to move forward. So that growth requires honoring the time it takes to process and knowing when it's time to move forward. While we all hope for exceptional leaders and to work with great folks who guide and lead us in exceptional ways, it's not always going to be the case. And when we're in those difficult situations, how do we navigate through them in the moment? And how do we see what we can learn from them in the long run? A couple of things I want to offer that might help you reflect. What is something that you've learned from a really difficult experience? What poor leadership has helped you become a better leader? And how can you support someone else navigating a difficult leader? I hope this never happens to you, but at some point, I think it will if it hasn't already. If you're in it now, navigate through this as best you can, get the support and resources that you need. And down the road, I think you'll look back and see that there was a lot to learn from this experience to help you in your leadership and to help others. These are the conversations I'd love to have. If you think a conversation like this might be helpful for you, let's connect.